is Psychedelic Actualization. On this channel, we talk about topics like self-realization, self-actualization, and working with psychedelics to live a more authentic and fulfilling life. Are you living in love or are you living in fear? This is going to be a very intense, short video and a deep dive into the topics of the true nature of love and the true nature of fear. It's inspired by a conversation I had on a rainbow gathering with a beautiful brother, and he talked about his life philosophy and his key insights, and he was like, I realized that everything we do in our lives is either based in choosing fear or it is based in choosing love. I was like, yeah, I've kind of heard that concept before, but actually it is very true. And looking at my life, honestly, I was like, actually I am still choosing a lot of what I'm doing, and I'm basing a lot of my actions on fear instead of love. And then I read Conversations with God, part 1, a couple of weeks or just days after that conversation. And there also it was emphasized again that all human words that we speak, thoughts and actions, are either based in fear or love. This is kind of the core duality. And in the Mool Mantra, there is a word that says nirbhau, which means without fear. And it is relating back to this teaching of non-duality, the teaching of there is only one. And if there's only one, then there's literally nothing to be afraid of. Because if there's no other, there's nothing to be afraid of. It is like this beautiful analogy of like one drop of the ocean cannot possibly be afraid of another drop of the ocean. It's both. They're both gonna end up in the ocean. It's just one. There's no space for fear. And this one is kind of the love with a capital L. And then the first polarity, the first separation is the separation from love and fear. So even fear is kind of a contracted form of that love. Fear is a subset of love. Fear is conditional love. Because with fear, with this sense of duality, comes a sense of me and you. And then through that separation, we can experience a sense of loss or of expectation. And we've been taught our whole life that there is this separation. We've been taught from our parents that we are expected to behave in a certain way and that we are lacking something, or that we are not worthy if we are behaving in another way. So this is kind of the first duality of fear and love. And duality and separation is the first and only sin that exists. So what do we fear, basically? I guess all fear kind of boils down to the fear of the unknown or the fear of death. Because our greatest driver in our life and also our greatest barrier is kind of this fear of death. Many of us, we're getting up, we're motivated to do stuff and follow along with our job or with everything we do because we fear death, basically. We want to secure ourselves. We want to build up this sense of safety for ourselves. And we do that by acting out of fear, by trying to prevent death, by fearing death. Most of our actions are not motivated by love, actually, if we truly look at it. And this fear is kind of based on just 3 components. There needs to be a me, a sense of I, then a sense of other or you, and a sense of time, of something happening, an action happening in the future, an event happening in the future. Fear cannot be in the past. So if we work on the I, we remove the I and the other and remove time, then there's no possibility for fear, because the one is kind of, the definition of the one, of the absolute, is that it is all-knowing, that it is timeless, that it is one, without separation. So death is also a very interesting topic. When we see and look at our core fear of death, and maybe you may not be aware of it, and I wasn't for a long time. Now I'm kind of more aware of my fear of death. But when we look at this core fear of death, it implies an assumption and a judgment towards death, because we judge death as bad most of the time. And this is kind of, again, relating back to the duality of there being a good and a bad. And I read a beautiful quote. It says, our level of awareness is directly related to our lack of judgment. So we can see this spectrum. If there's only love and fear in duality itself, kind of this capital love breaks down into the two aspects of love and fear. We can see love and fear on this spectrum, and fear is also related to judgment, and love is related to non-judgment. So the more we love, the more we move into non-judgmental space, and the more we fear, the more we move into judgmental space. So the language of God is infinite, unconditional love. Maybe you've heard that before. This phrase, unconditional love, is it resonates very deeply with me. And I've kind of been familiar with that concept for years and years and years on end. But to truly embody and understand that is something completely different. Because unconditional love implies selflessness. And that is God's love for us. That is kind of also the reason, I guess, why we have free will. Because God is so selfless, so hands-off, so non-judgmental that He says, I want for you what you want for yourself. I want for you what you want for yourself. That is the definition of complete, unconditional, infinite, selfless love. And that is the only true love. The love with a capital L, not the contracted love. So the only true love is when you give yourself up fully. That's what God did. God gave Himself up completely, fully, in full selflessness for existence to be created. And when we do that, when we aim to give ourselves up completely, to merge with the One, to give it all, to die before we die, then there's only the One playing. Then there's no one here. And by that, there's no possibility for fear to be here. Because we say, I want what you want. God, I give myself up completely, and I want what you want. That's the true love. That's the unconditional love. Love is the realization that there is no difference between anything. Love is the complete absence of all bias and preference. There's a beautiful quote in the Tao Te Ching from Lao Tzu, and he says, whoever can see through all fear will always be safe. And this kind of relates back to the topic of knowing and kind of intellectually understanding this concept of what I've been talking about. And embodying it, right? Living it. Because in myself, honestly, when I look at my life and I've been doing some deep self-reflection, I see that my actions, a lot of my actions, are still motivated by fear, by this fear of death, by this fear of losing safety, losing my security and my comfortable space. And when you do an actual honest look of how many of your actions and thoughts and words throughout your day-to-day life are based in fear, that's kind of where we can start off with this self-awareness of how much fear there is in our life. And that's where we can then move truly towards this true love. And there's another beautiful quote which says, each moment describes who you are and gives you the opportunity to decide if that is who you want to be. So each and every moment we are free to decide if we choose love or if we choose fear. And each and every moment, right now, we can decide anew. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That gives us the freedom and the possibility to actually do it right now and choose love over fear.